Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Lore, which is brought to you by Campfire Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and games usually run about 60 to 90 minutes. In Lore, you and your friends will assume the role of a fantasy archetype over a 3-day journey. You will travel across beautiful lands, collect treasure, go on quests, fight monsters, and uncover mysteries. At the end of the 3rd day, the game ends, and the player left with the highest score will be the winner. So join me, and let me tell you of the days of high adventure. So this game has some nice action selection, lots of different things you're going to be doing, and you really do have to balance all the different types of activities and balance that with different points and leveling up your character, all those things that you would imagine in a game like this. Now you're going to get points at the end of the game for gems that you've gotten, for quests you've gone on, for relics that you've found, and for the lore that you have uncovered and used those special abilities through the course of the game. Also, you have renown, and based on your level of renown will also give you points at the end of the game. So lots of different areas to work on, trying to be maybe that jack of all trades. So like any good fantasy game, you're going to get your own character board, and you have a starting set of stats. Now, these stats are color-coded to some degree. You've got your main level stats on the left side of your board, and at the bottom of your board is where you'll find the renown. And everyone starts with the same number of renown, and then you have areas to augment those abilities. And you could be putting cards here through the course of the game. And at the top, more importantly, you have auras. Now, auras are going to come into play based on time of day because, again, this game takes place over 3 days. So 3 rounds with some phases, and you have the dawn all the way down to the night phase. So you'll be moving through that, and you'll be mindful of what time of day it is when you go into battle, because you get bonuses if you happen to be going into battle at the same time of day as is on your player board. Now, you have 2 auras on your player board. One on the left, which you just have to start, and one on the right, which you can unlock if you go to the merchant and pay gems in order to do so. That is the currency of the realm, gems. And the time of day, these auras come into play for enemies as well. When you enter into a duel with an enemy, if that aura is at the top of their card that matches the time of day, they get bonuses. So basically what it boils down to is they get a +3, or you might get a +3 if it happens to be the time of day that matches your player board. So obviously, fighting some monsters at a certain time of day is not wise, because some of these monsters get really big and powerful. Now, there are 3 levels of monsters. Basically, you have the day 1 monsters, the day 2, and the day 3. So you'll be cycling through those as you move through the different days as well. So for the remainder of this video, we're going to be focusing on the wizard. It's one of my favorite characters. Lots of different archetypes again in this game, and all these boards are double-sided and they give you different stats to start with. And we'll take a look at why those stats are important and so forth in a minute. But first, quests. That's one of the biggest things you're going to be doing in this game is quests, and you're going to start with one. And there's some variation in the quests, obviously. Some can net you 15 points, and those are typically going to have a big boss battle at the end, so you need to be ready for that. But let's take a look at a basic quest. This one will give you 9 when you complete it. In the top right corner is a bonus, all kinds of different bonuses. In the case of this card, you're going to roll the treasure dice and collect that treasure. And then you're going to move through the progression to complete the quest. In the bottom left of the card, this card in particular, you'll have to do a lore action, and then you'll need to use a situation or an enchantment card. Those cards are going to be found in the event deck, which we'll get to. And then finally, you'll finish this quest by going into a duel with one of the monsters. And then once you complete the quest, you just turn it over and you'll collect those points at the end of the game. Now, your pawn, your character, is located in one of the 3 zones or fields, they call them, and you will be able to move between them. But first, on your turn, you're going to be entering into the event phase if you want to, and you can. So what's interesting here again is that you have to rely on the time of day, and if the field you're in happens to have a matching time of day, then you get to draw an event card. And again, there's several different types. A lot of these are used for questing and so forth, but you can find characters that can tag along with you to give you bonuses. You can get enchantments that have somewhat of a dual purpose. A lot of these enchantments will have like a handshake going on where you can use them for other players. And why would you do that? Well, you might need to use them as a request requirement. So that would be a reason. And usually you have 2 times you can use this card, and you do have a limit of how many events you can have, 3 at the bottom of your player board. So keep that in mind. And then there are special characters, merchant characters, that come into play. If you draw one of these cards, it moves moves to the merchant board and gives you more options when you go shopping. And then finally, you have situation cards, which again relate to quests, but based on the situation that the card calls for, it can be played out a turn in various types of situations, obviously, as the card calls for it. So those are the basics of what you're doing with events. Again, it's very dependent on the time of day when you can draw those cards. The second part of your turn is all about moving. So you'll take your pawn and move it to an adjacent field, up or down, whatever makes sense, because you might need to align yourself with the next part of the day phase in order to use your aura or that particular zone to its advantage. Now, there's other things in the fields that you'll need to be mindful of. Maybe you're going to battle and you need to use a special ability that you've acquired, a card, and you'll look at the different types of icons. There's swords that are for weapon. You also have passive type icons, and you've got your renown icons. So those different abilities are going to relate to the icons on the ability cards and when you can activate those based on the field you're in. So you might need certain abilities for when you duel and so forth. There's also field bonuses. So when you complete quests, when you defeat monsters and duels, you'll find a bonus in that particular field. So lots of interesting things going on, how you navigate that, and these bonuses are going to do all kinds of different things. On these particular fields here, you get things like extra gems, or you might get the ability to move up one of your stats by 1, or you might just move up renown by 1. So there's lots of different things going on. And these are just 3. These are the basic fields that you can move between. There's others that you can add into the game as well. Now, the last part of your turn is performing one action. We've talked about many of these actions already, but this is where the action selection comes into play. You will be choosing between one of the 4 cards. Now, the one furthest to the right is going to be free. The other cards, though, will cost you in renown and or gems, or both, based on where the placement is. And of course, then the cards shift down based on which card is pulled and so forth. Now, these cards, again, are going to do various things like treasure hunting, and depending on time of day and the field you're in, you might get to roll the dice twice. But these dice will give you gems mostly, but also give you relics. Relics are really nice because they give you points at the end of the game, or you can discard them to get a special bonus. Like in this one, discard it and you get a +3 in your blue stat. So lots of interesting ways to use relics. Again, trade-off here. So then you also have quests that you can do. Well, you don't complete quests, but you can gain a new quest based on the field that you're in. You grab the top card and put it next to your player board. Again, you can only ever have 2 quests in play. Or you might choose to get a companion. Companions are going to give you bonuses when you go into battle and duel and so forth. And companions work similar to relics, where if you discard them, you're going to get a bonus. So companions are super valuable. Everything you're doing in this game, again, jack of all trades. Then you have the lore icon, which is the little window. And lore is interesting because there's 2 phases to lore. You're going to put your cube into play and draw a card and put it face down in an available slot. Or you can play next to someone else who's put a card into play, and then that card will flip, and you both have worked on that card, so you will share the benefit at the bottom. Now, why is that important? Because at the end of the game, for every card that you shared, you're each going to get 3 points. But if you ever complete a lore card on your own, you get 7 points, which is what I did very well in our play. I ended up getting like 43 points for lore. It was really an outstanding part of the game for me. So another action you might choose is going to the merchant board. This is where you're going to buy those ability cards that you're going to be placing on your player boards. Now, you get a one-time bonus in the bottom right corner. It will move up one of your stats. But the rest of the card is going to be triggered, like I said, on the fields that have those lit icons that match the top left corner, the icon and color. So you need to pay attention to what those abilities do and so forth. It's going to cost you gems in order to buy, cost you 3 gems in order to buy one of those. But also you have the option of upgrading to your second aura at the top of your player board. So you have more options in this day-night cycle. So that's really nice. The merchant stuff comes in handy. And if there's a merchant character in play, it gives you even more options. Now, finally, we have duel. You're going to be dueling quite a bit. You get points for defeating monsters, but as you can see, they have several different stats. Again, the color is what really matters here. You're going to be rolling dice for the monster, and based on the color that shows up, that's the stat that's going to be in play. And that's the stat you have to beat with your character. So again, this is where auras come into play. You hope that they don't get the bonus for being that time of day. So be mindful of when you attack them and so forth. But your character will then also roll a die, and based on that die will determine which stat you're going to use for the battle. And of course, if any of your bonuses of your companions, or perhaps the different abilities that you've gathered through the course of the game, any of those things come into play as well. You also get another bonus though, which is really nice. You'll be able to add a multiplier based on how many of those abilities that you have into play that match the abilities in the field that you're battling in. So it does become a huge advantage as you do so. You know, you have a multiplier of 1, 2, or 3, which adds so much to the battle, especially as you battle those higher level characters or monsters towards the end of that third day and so forth. So it is something to keep in mind. And at the end of the game, you know, you're going to be totaling all your score between all these different things you're doing. Again, so many directions you could go with your character based on what actions are available to you and so forth. But it does give you many things to think about as you quest through this world and so forth. So you will be going after those points, but there are also bonus cards at the end of the game. So if you happen to be the player that defeated the most monsters, you're going to get 7 bonus points. So you are the monster slayer. But there's several different types of bonuses to get. I had the bonuses for lore, which gave me, I think it was 10 points, but these are huge and you try to go after them for those in-game bonuses for sure. So those are the basics of the things you're doing. You're moving through this world, questing, taking advantage of all the different actions, moving through quests, trying to get companions, relics, different gems. You know, there's so many directions you can go with your character. Also those passive abilities that come into play in these lore cards, do not forget those. They are super powerful. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, you know, first and foremost, this game is absolutely beautiful. I love all the decision making, lots of different directions to go as you build up your character and quest and do all the various things to get points at the end of the game. But lots of decision making, and that's the key thing here, is that you do have a lot of choices in how you perform in the quests that you get and how you go after the lore, and keeping in mind all your bonuses for all those duels that you're going to be entering into. I really liked all the options that were available to you for sure. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.